Hello, Sploresville. I have a bit of a touch of, as the Duprees like to say. They have all sorts of nice little sayings, but I can't help think that it has to do with the wild swings in weather that we're getting. I saw Brandon Dupree earlier today. That's why he's on my mind, and he told me about the water main break being responsible for the flooding at Sally Ferguson's. Not really a water main break, more of a rusting through, but it does mean they'll have to dig up some. The Duprees have a way of talking that I've always been drawn to. When I saw Brandon, he said, "It is a day," and he waved. His mother had it too. I remember when we were growing up, if she didn't like someone, just about the worst thing that she could say was, "Skunks don't hibernate," as they were walking away. But it is a day today, isn't it? The second day in a row where the temperatures are above freezing and the sun seems to have a little bit of purpose to it, finally. These early signs of spring kind of ripple through the town as things wake up at their own pace. There's energy to it, you can feel it, but it's a bit disorganized like a wind chime. Tyler Vaughn, the paper boy, was on his bicycle today, certainly a sign of spring, and his father had decided last night not to drive him around in the station wagon like he'd been doing all winter. Now on a bike, without his father looking at him from the driver's side window, Tyler no longer had quite the motivation to get the paper all the way up to the doorstep. So Laura Murphy had to come out of the house this morning to get her paper, wearing her house coat and her slippers. Unlike Tyler, she hadn't made the transition to spring just yet and was still in her winter house coat. Not much different than the spring house coat, really, just a little thicker. Both were quilted and adorned with red and yellow flowers, and both felt cold when you first put them on, and then you warmed up pretty quick. She probably only made it about 10 feet out the house before she let out that scream so loud that Bean Davidson heard it 3 doors down. When Bean arrived, Laura was just standing over a big sort of stain on the driveway, a red stain that splashed up onto the mottled snow of her lawn. Now, Laura had resigned herself to the idea that she was going to be alone in this terrifying discovery, so Bean startled her a bit and she put her face on. Now, if you know Laura, you know this, but Laura has this one peculiarity. I mean, you and I will look in the mirror once in a while and we'll put our fingers on our forehead, around our temples, and push up to see what we looked like when we were a little bit younger. Now, I'm not sure how long it's been, but some time ago, Laura started to do this out in public. And with like a lot of strange things that you see every day, it became normal. And it's certainly not the same every day. She has a number of different faces that she puts on. And when Bean startled her this morning, she put her fingers back by her ears under her jawline and pushed up just a tiny bit. Bean normally would have said something like, "You look different today and it suits you," but today they just stared at that red stain on the driveway for a few minutes until they decided to make a call. Cindy Perkins Marlowe, one of the local police, and quite frankly one of the better ones, got the call that morning. Cindy had been on patrol all night, and it had been a night, as the Duprees would say. At around 10 p.m., she'd heard that some teenagers were playing around on the lot behind the pharmacy, the lot that doesn't get plowed. When she arrived, what she found was 2 teenage boys, Kevin Bryce and Keith Chang, face down in the snow, making a kind of a swimming motion. The whole thing was a bit surreal. The parking lot had a lunar landscape feel to it. During the days, the sun was hot enough to melt the snow in patches, and then at night it would refreeze and create these soft, rolling bumps crested on the edges with dirt from the air. As Cindy approached, these 2 boys, both around 16 or so, quickly stood up with their puffy coats, looking a bit scared and innocent. "What are you doing?" "Nothing." "Making snow angels?" Silence. "Well, I think it's time you go home now," and both boys turned around and started to walk back towards the wood's edge when Cindy saw Kevin kind of fiddle with his pants a bit. "What do you got in your pants?" Cindy called out, and one of the boys said something, but it was quiet enough that Cindy pretended she didn't hear and got back into her car and drove off. When she arrived at Laura's the next morning, she was tired and a bit matter-of-fact, so she just stooped down and put her nose right into that red stain. "It's tomato sauce," she said. And then she stood up and complimented Laura on her face, said it suited her, and then they began to talk about all the different ways that tomato sauce might have gotten into the driveway. Winter, of course, is very difficult for 15 and 16-year-old teens, and the first sign of spring brought with it a kind of excitement. Keith and Kevin had been outside in the woods for some time before Keith had the idea of stealing some Southern Comfort from his mother's liquor cabinet. They were tipsy when they came across that parking lot behind the pharmacy, and to them it looked like an ocean, rippled in waves. They were pretending to swim when Cindy scared the living shit out of them. Kevin still had the bottle, and he shoved it into his pants as they were walking away. Keith was pretty rattled by the whole thing, and he rode his bike home so fast. About halfway home, though, he heard this noise, a sh sound. It wasn't until he got home and he parked his bike on the side of the house that the smell caught up with him. He'd been hit by a skunk. Afraid of being caught tipsy, he snuck into the house and did what we all do here in Sploresville when we get hit by a skunk. He grabbed a can of tomato sauce, got buck naked, and ran down the street, out of the way, into Laura's driveway, and poured it all over himself. And there he was, shivering in the cold moonlight, laughing to himself a little bit and excited that spring was on the way. Well, in any case, to fix that sewer main, it looks like they're going to have to tear down the school gymnasium, which gives us the opportunity to redesign the school mascot painting on the floor. That thing was atrocious, I think we can agree on that, if not even a little offensive. Julia Chambers, the school superintendent, has opened it up to the community to come up with a design, so if you have a sketch in mind, please send it to me, and we'll see what we can do. As for tomorrow, we'll go with the Sploresville motto, let's find out.